There is no nightlife in Spain. They stay up late, but they get up late. This is not nightlife. This is delaying the day. Famously said Ernest Hemingway. Another one by Hemingway, and I'm going to steal this one. I drink to make other people more interesting. I love that. And the last one's a little bit kind of sad, but it is a cool one from Oscar Wilde. After the first glass, you see things as you wish they were. After the second, you see things as they are not. And finally, you see things as they really are. And that is the most horrible thing in the world.
Okay.
Just a good motivation to not drink too much.
Okay, I have a question for you now.
Tell me.
In which movie did James Bond first say shaken, not stirred? Some choices for you. Is it Goldfinger, Diamonds Are Forever, or The Man with the Golden Gun?
Diamonds Are Forever.
No, Goldfinger.
Oh.
1964 with Sean Connery.
Okay.
Yeah.
The best James Bond.
Really?
Viva Sean Connery.
Okay.
No.
We'll talk about that.
Okay, we'll talk
day.
about that another time. Welcome.
Chin,
Cheers,
chin,
cheers,
salute.
chin, chin. We are your co-hosts, Laura Senior Garcia and
Nalini Sharma.
welcome to Made in Spain, episode 3, season 2, the cocktail culture in Spain.
What are we drinking?
We are drinking a gin and tonic.
Not gin and tonic here.
Gin tonic.
Exactly.
Because us Spanish people, for some reason, decided to take out the and it's just gin tonic.
That is actually the name of the drink.
Gin
here.
tonic.
I mean, it's hard. We sort of chatted about sangria before, where it's tried to be a little, the drink of Spain. But I don't think that's true. I really think it would be more gin tonic.
Now, and we've had discussions around the rise and fall of the gin tonic because about, a few years ago, particularly, coming up to COVID and that whole time, I mean, it was just incredible. Like you'd go to places and they'd have 300 options for different gins, different tonics. It just became a really big thing. And I think people were really bored during the lockdowns and they were kind of learning how to make gin tonics and they were, mixing up all this different stuff in it and using those cool spoons to break the bubble of the tonic.
Yeah.
So definitely I would say that gin tonic is a big part of the drinking culture here for sure.
I'll say that when we first moved to Mallorca, it was a thing to actually go out for gin
tonics.
Yeah, it was just a thing. And I never really had it before other than the odd time. But the way they make a gin and tonic here, gin tonic. It is, it's from the late 90s, early 2000s, as far as the little bit of research that I've been able to do, that chefs, these, Michelin-starred chefs, Spain really started to blow up in the world in terms of gastronomy.
Yeah.
And had a lot of Michelin-star restaurants.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it was sort of in that phase, that craze, that it was almost like a think tank where they started to experiment with different things, how to elevate certain things. It was the chefs who started drinking the gin tonics in the big balloon glass with the big cubes of ice, which, by the way, is actually referred to as gas station ice, I found. And the only reason I say that is because
everybody goes to buy it at the gas station.
They go to the gas station, but also they said whether you're in a Michelin-star restaurant or the gas station, you're getting the same type of ice.
And it's kind of like industrial ice is the way I would describe it. It's ice that lasts a lot longer
which
for some
is
reason.
better for the drink.
It's better for the drink. Not sure exactly what's in there other than water, but it does last a lot longer.
But that's how it started to catch on. So they would do these kind of, I think, meetings and try to come up with different recipes and ingredients. And then the drink just started to catch on. And from the north, into Barcelona, and then just kind of started to become a thing along the coast. And now I think that gin tonic has become a caricature of what it originally was.
So I mentioned to Nalini when we were preparing and doing the research for this episode, and this was pretty comical. Another place that is big on the culture for gin tonics is Portugal.
Yes.
And I have the chance to travel to Angola sometimes. And
oh, yeah, that's so funny.
Yes. So Angola has a very, very large Portuguese influence as well. So gin tonics are pretty popular. There's actually a few local places in Luanda, in the capital of Angola, that have gin manufacturing facilities. They make their own gin.
Right.
So I ordered the gin at a hotel when I was staying there. And it was pretty funny because what came back was more like a salad of stuff. So, normally in the gin, you want to kind of take a few things that highlight the actual gin. Like some will put in like cucumber or citrus or cinnamon or anise, not everything in the same glass.
Yeah.
But, I think, again, they're trying to absolutely do their best. And it's like, okay, everything's going in there. So including the cucumber, the fruit, the cinnamon, the anise, everything in the same drink.
Yeah. That's really funny. When I went back to Toronto after living on this side for a while, the first summer I went back, I started making gin and tonics at a barbecue.
Yeah.
And I took
balloon glasses?
Yeah, with the balloon glasses. And I took the little mixer things that they sell very commonly here in stores where you get the cardamom and little.
And we have some in the glass.
Yeah, red
today.
peppercorns. These are dried roses, dried the list
it
goes
gets
on.
fancy.
Yeah.
You can have like gin tonics with gold leaf in it.
Everything. But I started making it at the barbecue just to show like this is the way people drink gin and tonic, in Spain. And oh my God, that was, a cultural hit.
Well, I can tell you that when I've been to the US and I've ordered a gin and tonic, and I have to really fight against my urge to be offended when they serve me a gin and tonic in a glass that's like a tube glass.
I know.
It's like, what are you doing? Like, I cannot drink this in this glass.
Heavy. It's very
and it's just not the same. Like, for me, it's like the only way I'm going to drink a gin and tonic is in one of these big balloon glasses. There's no going back after you kind of start,
and lots of tonic.
Trying the good stuff.
Yeah.
So,
except for how they pour here, which is a lot of gin.
Yes. So that's
sometimes
one kind of
light on the tonic.
Word of warning for people who are coming over here and you're going out, please know that a lot of times they don't use measures.
Actually, the only bar I've seen them use a measure in is Nova.
Yeah. And that's British owned, British run. And most people that go there are British.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
The Spanish bars, as far as I can tell, do not measure. They just pour.
So the first time Nalini and I went for a gin and tonic together, and she's like, oh, that was like a quadruple gin pour. And I'm trying to make eye contact with the waiter, like, stop, please.
Yeah.
Because it comes to a point where actually you deteriorate the quality and the taste of the drink, right?
Also, you just can't, that night, that was, I think, the first night we'd gone out that we sort of became friends, and we gone out, we shared the one drink. We just kept diluting it in different glasses with more ice. And he was like, oh, do you want? I'm like, no, more tonic, please. Anyway, it's funny.
So this episode is all about cocktail culture. And we talked a little bit about the gin and tonic. One thing that you'll see is that anywhere, any of the big cities that you go to, be it Madrid, be it Barcelona, be it Valencia, North, you're going to find now some very high-end cocktail places that you can go to.
Right.
Ranked among some of the best kind of cocktail places in Europe, and people take a lot of pride in it. There's a number of different cocktails that we're going to talk about, but also, the other thing that's quite cool is there's starting to be this culture of the speakeasy here. So bringing back these kind of like secret places that you have to have a password to go into. And it's they have very, very unique cocktails. So really encourage for those who love the cocktail culture, if you're going to one of the big cities, check on Instagram or any of the socials, like what are some of the kind of cool little cocktail places that you can find, because there's some very, very unique places that you can visit, especially in the big cities right now.
Can we talk about this drink called the Yayo?
When Nalini first asked me, she called me, she's like, okay, I need to do some fact checking preparing for this episode. And she's like, have you ever had a drink called Yayo? And I'm like, what? A Yayo?
Which means grandfather.
It means grandfather. But the interesting thing is Yayo and Yaya is like grandma, grandfather, grandma, grandpa in Valencian or Catalan.
Okay.
Normally. So when you were mentioning about this, I'm like, this is interesting. I've never heard about this. I then asked my mom.
Yes.
It's like, hey, have you ever? And she's like, nope. Oh. So it must be a Madrid thing.
It is. Mm-hmm. So, okay. The ingredients in a Yayo are 3/4 ounces of dry gin, 1 slice of lemon, 1.5 ounces of what is labeled as gaseosa.
Which
is like, a sweet soda.
Soda.
Yeah,
basically.
It's just like a clear sweet soda. Mm-hmm. You can substitute with Sprite or 7-Up if you can't find it. and then 1.5 ounces of sweet vermouth, Spanish vermouth. So the history of it is that in Franco's time and before that, it was the old men that would gather for the vermouth hour.
The drink.
Yeah. Right? So a few hours before.
The pre-lunch drink.
The pre-lunch drink. And they would go to very traditional Spanish bodegas. There's a famous one in Madrid that's still holding on to its roots. They have not updated it. They have not given over to gentrification.
Can you believe that the hipsters are trying to bring these places back? I actually follow two guys who are like trying to convince people to go to these old school cafes so that not everything turns into this kind of pretty, gorgeous.
No, this is
like, bring back the crappy bars,
really. But this bar is still a holdout, and it's before. I mean, it's 50, 60 years old. The history goes back. It is called Casa Camachos. It is in the Malasaña neighborhood.
Malasaña is one of my favorite neighborhoods.
So now the neighborhood is changing, but this bar is holding on to it. And the drink was created by the owner at the time after Franco fell and Madrid started to modernize and they wanted to get rid of, these old ways.
Anything that felt old school.
Exactly. They wanted to be modern, but they drink the vermouth on tap.
Yep.
Right? So he came up with this drink. And it's called the Yayo in sort of, homage to the older men that drank it.
That's pretty cool.
In the neighborhood, they don't say, let's go to Casa Camachos. They say, let's go to Los Yayos.
Los Yayos. Can I talk a little bit about vermouth?
Yes, absolutely.
So vermouth's an interesting one. So kind of the same thing as the gin tonic. Instead of gin and tonic, here is vermouth.
Yeah.
So in the actual name of the drink is vermouth, and it's Italian. It actually came from Torino, but the vermouth culture here kind of went through an up and down. So late 1800s, it was in the up and up, and then it's kind of quietened for a while. And now you actually go to a lot of bars that are called vermuterias.
Yes.
Same thing, kind of it's the pre-lunch drink.
Yeah.
By excellence, it's the pre-lunch drink. It's not usually something that people would have at dinner or like late in the evening, but it's the kind of pre-lunch, lunch.
Apparently they still do it in Barcelona. It's very common.
No, and in Alicante even, there's multiple vermuterias where you can go and pick from all the vermouth. So one that we have here, Sauk, I just love this bottle. This is actually from Alcoy.
Oh, okay.
Which is also where we went for our Masia del Altel visit for the
bottle.
olive oil. It is a very interesting, pretty bottle. So with vermouth, you have rosé vermouth, white, and the red, and the dry. So there's 4 different kinds of vermouth. Interestingly enough, when vermouth came about here in Spain, it was a luxury item. It was actually priced around the same as the highest end cognac that you could buy.
Okay. And vermouth here is mostly sweet, no?
Yes, it's mostly, it's got a bit of a kind of sweet touch, and most people have it with olives.
Right.
So what the Salles, which was one of the first brands to make vermouth here in Spain, what they did that was very clever is they immediately kind of got approval to distribute to the royal household.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Which is kind of like our Loewe thing.
Yeah.
Smart people, a couple hundred years ago, the best thing that you could do for yourself was become an official distributor to, the monarchy. And then that was like a stamp of like, hey, if it's good enough for the monarchy, it's good for the people, right? So, and then vermouth really started taking off. It was also Martini were one of the first to actually invest a lot of money in advertising, and they popularized vermouth big time. So that's kind of a little bit about vermouth, which is
I think
also
vermouth
part
is
of
going to
it.
have its sort of its heyday now.
Yeah,
I think you'll
coming.
see it over the next few years that it'll become more popular. Whereas maybe the gin tonic, not that it will not be popular, it's
starting to kind of take more of a backseat, I believe, whereas before it's like, oh wow, that's like.
And can we just talk about some of the things that they serve with cocktails here? So I just put out this little little nut mix, what have you, but you get it in every single bar anywhere.
So you'll either get olives, you'll get the nut mix, popcorn, which is always like
something a little strange. And also they serve at times
sweets like
we
call them gominolas, little candy.
It's very funny that they will serve that. I've actually had here carrots. Carrots, I don't know why. But
I would be like, excuse me.
they brought baby carrots, which I was really upset with. But
I was like,
this is really...
This is kind of gone too far.
But yeah, I've had baby carrots as a snack.
Potentially as a garnish. So I do think also that's what's worth mentioning about the cocktail culture here in Spain is that, you know, obviously something that's not a cocktail, but, you know, beer is a huge, like, you know, the cañas. But I think what's worth mentioning about the culture is socially acceptable very much to drink at lunch for most people.
It's normal.
Mm-hmm. So if you're in a work lunch, depending on if you're expected to go back to work or not afterwards, there'll be like one beer, one glass of wine, but it's very, very normal. Like it's socially acceptable. It's, you know, considered to be, you know, and if you go, let's say for lunch with your family on a weekend, then everybody's ordering the vermouths and all of that with lunch
wine or what have you. Yeah.
Whereas I found that quite of a contrast when I remember going to a business meeting in Houston, for example, and everybody's like drinking water and everything. I was like, oh, okay. So I guess there's like no beer and wine here with lunch.
Actually, it's funny because when I was in Toronto, I spotted, I went for lunch with my son and it was quite early. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was maybe 12:15 for lunch. And there were a few people in the restaurant. It was a nice Italian restaurant. And there's a couple and they were clearly on a first date.
Oh,
okay.
Don't you love that?
Yeah, I love it because I love eavesdropping.
Yeah.
What could they possibly be talking about now? But they were having wine. And here I would never even notice if somebody was having a glass of wine at first of all, people don't eat lunch here at 12. That's the other thing.
No.
But a beer, let's say, if you were out somewhere and it was noon.
With the almuerzo.
Exactly.
Like even with the mid-morning snack, for sure.
They have the little herb shots sometimes.
And of course, we haven't mentioned as well the Carajillo.
Oh, yes. Okay. So this is I would say the OG.
Yeah. This is the OG of the
espresso martini.
Old espresso martini talk now. The Carajillo was where it started.
Okay. So briefly explain how... Or when would people drink it?
I mean, again, you know, we have a cafe. You know, we have a gentleman that comes in at 7:30 in the morning. I mean, it's terrible. And sometimes I feel like, oh my goodness, should you really be giving someone, you know, like a...
But he's there.
He's there.
This is his drink in the morning.
Yeah, it's his morning drink. So, yes. And I think kind of going back to the Yayo thing, it is a little bit of a Yayo move, to kind of order a Carajillo because it's kind of a very strong, usually it's a very strong liquor.
Yeah, coffee and liquor together is
coffee
strong,
and liquor.
Of course.
You know, so it'll definitely wake you up, I guess. But yes, definitely the Carajillo is something that you'll be able to order the Carajillo in most bars in Spain.
Right.
Even coffee shops.
Okay,
so it's kind of like a Spanish version of a Irish coffee without the cream.
Interesting. We might have to try.
But like you said, the OG of the espresso martini.
Yeah, there you go. Which I do not like. I don't like. But what I do find interesting is that all these drinks are making a comeback. The types of alcohol, the liquor
like the
from
shoes.
Yeah,
it's like we said with the shoes. It's it's fashions that come up and down. I mean, I have to say we've come a long way because at least with this cocktail culture piece, because I mean, I remember when. I was first drinking cocktails, like, coming out of like teenage years and everything. I mean, people drank Red Bull and vodka, it's like, it wasn't fancy stuff. And now you can order nice cocktails in most places. So yeah, I think it's progress.
And I would also say a pina colada is not a thing here. Like people who come here and order a pina colada, like
the only thing I can think about when you say pina colada is that song. If you like pina colada,
it's not a thing here. Don't order it.
No, it is not. Like if you think you're in Hawaii, you're not.
Yeah,
so
you're not gonna look cool with a pina colada. All right, slice of life.
Yeah. Slice of Life, episode 3, season 2. And we've got a little bit of an experience plus our drop of tea coming back in this episode as well.
Yes. Let's talk about Nova Cocktail Bar, which, surprise, surprise, located in Benidorm.
Shout out to Alex Smith.
Yes.
Who is the owner and one of the wonderful cocktail makers there, and who was kind enough to make our made in Spain cocktail for us.
Yeah.
Which we totally destroyed today. His
We
looks
tried to make
way
it.
better. Obviously, not historians, quote, not cocktail makers either. But
so what's the recipe?
does it taste good?
This is our cocktail. We told him the flavors that we
like.
both like, and he made this specifically, and it's called Made in Spain.
Like the Powerpuff Girls, sugar and spice and everything nice.
Exactly.
Okay, so it was Blanco tequila, 1.25
Yes.
ounces, 1 ounce of lemon juice, 3/4 ounce of coconut syrup, 3/4 ounce of triple sec, 2 drops of a salt solution or a pinch of salt if you don't have salt solution around, 1 or 2 drops of Tabasco or a little more if you like it spicier like we do, and then garnish with a mochi.
Yeah.
Japan coming back to our lives.
Yeah.
As always.
You
So-
mentioned the monine, right? The
Oh,
coconut.
yes, the coconut syrup. Yeah,
Yeah,
the Monine,
it's
3/4 ounces.
the brand that he uses is Monine, which is quite popular with bars and bartenders, etc. But it's quite thick and viscous.
Yes.
But it smells delicious.
Yes, so it's very kind of like
Should we?
tropical actually. So
Yeah, should we
let's
try it?
try it,
Okay,
and then
so
we'll talk a little bit more about the
First,
experience.
Yeah, a little bit with the mochi.
So let's try the cocktail.
Cheers.
Cheers. Chin chin.
It's good.
It's just crazy, but it works.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the slice of life is like a very ASMR section. Where, hey, if you're into listening to people eat, this is for you.
And also, the things we've had this time has been a little bit difficult.
Well, and now for the big part of ASMR of this episode, we have some nuts and the stuff like we said during the episode that they serve. So I'm going to take just a couple of these Kikos and do our usual crunch. So
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about Nova. So it's located in Benidorm on the Spanish side. Mm-hmm. And it's basically opposite the church. You walk to the end and it's on the corner. I think it's been there maybe about a year or so.
Okay, a couple of years maybe.
Do you think so? Okay, wait. Actually, I shouldn't say it. The first time we went there was a year ago. We went down for a lunch or a dinner, saw a cocktail bar, and went in. We had a quick drink and left. He did remember us, though. That was the interesting part from a year ago. Very friendly guy. He runs it. I think he's got a couple of bars here. Can we talk about it? That he wants to open this.
He has a secret project, so we shouldn't talk about it.
So it's a secret project, but it's another establishment that he's trying to work on in Benidorm. And they have no food there. So do not go thinking you're going to have snacks or anything. They serve, oddly enough, these little
Sweets,
like
the little ones
candies,
that look like
gummies.
sharp.
Yeah.
Do I have sugar all over
No.
my face? Okay.
Do I? No.
No, you're good.
They and that's what they serve with the drinks. That's kind of what you get. Or maybe what else? What did he bring us? Olives?
Yeah, they like
can't remember.
like the stuff we mentioned, little
Yeah.
things to pick out.
But it's strictly a cocktail bar, and they make really interesting cocktails too.
Yes, and they're bringing some new stuff out. Also, we made an agreement with Alex for those of you listening that do happen to pop over to Benidorm and go to Nova. If 100 people or more ask for our Made in Spain cocktail at Nova, he will put it on the menu.
Yeah, we asked him to put it
go people, ask for the Made in Spain cocktail. It is actually delicious, even though it may not look like it.
It's very
really, really good.
I mean, if you like coconut.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's very good.
That is a must. If
Yeah,
you
you
want
have
to
to like
try this
coconut.
cocktail, you have to like coconut.
And it
So-
was very interesting because he said some of their most popular cocktails, they do a lot of market research to find out what people want to drink.
and what they're going to even like think of trying. So
Right.
they actually do a lot of Bloody Marys.
Yes.
They do a master class there.
Yes.
So if you've got 5 people and you want to sign up to actually, do a master class of cocktails, and it's actually very reasonably priced. I think he said 35 euros and, all the drinks are included. So
Yeah, and it's fun. And he's a really fun guy. He's a
Yeah.
very interesting guy. He's very fun. He makes the experience nice. It's a nice little place to stop if you're right near Tapas Alley, if you want to go eat something after or just go for a walk at the Lookout.
And if you feel like you have done something wrong by drinking a cocktail, you can go to the confessionary, to the church, and repent.
Right next door.
Right next door. Okay. So that's a little bit about our experience in Nova. Really highly encourage people to go there. And like I said, try and make the Made in Spain cocktail.
Ask for it.
I am sure that if you try, you'll maybe be able to make it a little prettier than us. So go for it.
Ours is a bit of a train wreck, but it's all right.
Actually, it looks like we're drinking milk, but it promise you, it is a cocktail. You can look at the video on socials. So for the slice of life and for the drop of tea today, we wanted to talk about an interesting subject. So a little bit of gossip, but...
A little bit of gossip. So on, I guess, streaming platforms now, there's the new season or first season of The Baldwins, which is, as far as I watched the first episode. It is quite a chaotic look at their lives. Alec Baldwin and his wife, Hilaria Baldwin.
Okay.
She has adopted that name even though she was born Hillary Thomas in Boston to American parents, mother, father. Father, I think, is from the Midwest. But she has adopted the Spanish persona. And for years, people thought she was from Spain.
Well, let's put it this way, did not correct it when the press made it seem that way.
She talked around it many times when they would say, she said, I never lied. I said I'm from Boston.
Yeah, but I don't know about that. So let's kind of put it out there. I was raised here. My mother is Spanish. I was raised in a Spanish mostly household. My dad spoke English, but so, and I think I have less of a thick accent
she does
than she puts on.
She also forgets words in English. She pretends
you mean like pepino, cucumber.
Doesn't know what certain words are in English anymore. It's just very strange. And I just thought it was sort of topical because the show is out now. If you have really nothing else to do and you want to see, you want to see what a chaotic life is, watch that show because they have 7 children. And the last one they refer to as baby. I think they ran out of names. They either ran out of names or they have forgotten that child's name. So I don't know. The child is only referred to as baby.
It works for a while. So Nalini asked me in preparation for this episode, what's your take on it? Like, what is your true perspective on this? And I said, well, I think it's kind of flattering. The fact that someone would want to be, Spanish, is kind of nice. It says a lot about maybe people do appreciate and her parents are living in Mallorca. A lot of her family lives here. And, we're not trying to kind of take a stab at Hilaria Baldwin. And if she wants to come on the show and talk to us about it, we're all for it. But it is pretty comical.
Yeah.
The first time because when I first heard her, I was like, whoa, this lady has a really thick Spanish accent. Since she was called out in the press, she's toned it way down.
A lot.
And then when people started coming out saying her name is not Hilaria, her name's Hillary, she's
somebody
from Boston.
Yeah, somebody posted it that went to school with her because she was just she's not an actress. She just married she married Alec Baldwin.
I think she's a yoga teacher.
Yeah, which is
cool.
That's fantastic. But her fame was because she was with somebody famous. Mm-hmm. So maybe it was easy to kind of, adopt that persona when you're not in the public eye.
Yeah, you weren't in the limelight.
Right. And now you're thrust into that and you've kind of put this out there maybe amongst close friends and family. And it's a thing that it's like as if you put on a dress, you're embodying that. But now you're out there and somebody finally commented who went to school with her and said, her name is Hillary and she grew up in America. And I went to school with her and she did not have an accent. And from there, it kicked off.
Yeah.
So So it is interesting. It's interesting.
If you like to read about gossip. There's also a really good podcast called Scandal that talks about it a little bit more. So definitely, hear what they have to say. But we wanted to bring it in as a kind of tie-in with Made in Spain. Interested that people would admire Spain enough to want to be Spanish. How's that?
Exactly.
All right.
Phrase of the day.
Sentence of the day.
Okay.
And since we did this episode about cocktails, and I had to go a little spicier, so please don't kill me.
Okay.
So if there's a beep on this, you know where it's coming from.
Okay.
All right, Nalini. So I am going to tell you the sentence of the day, but I'm also going to use the glass to symbolize it. So the phrase of the day is el que no apoya, no folla.
Anybody else know what this means?
El que no apoya. Apoya is to lay your glass. Right. And I'm not going to say it again, but no beep.
Oh.
So, do you want the translation?
Yes.
Okay. If you don't rest your glass, you're not getting laid.
Oh. Well, what does that mean?
So this is really, really funny. The next time you sit with Spanish people at a table and people are having a drink, you watch this because they won't say it because it's kind of rude and it's like, obviously it's like the F word or whatever. Yeah. So what they'll do is they'll look at you and people will go, because it's like a superstition. It's like, because if you don't do that, it's a superstitious sort of like, if you don't rest your glass, you're not going to get lucky or whatever. So
oh my God.
People will do that. Funny. Like they'll kind of like go, like, okay, is anybody, it's really, really funny.
It makes sense because lunch here lasts 7 hours. So you better put your glass down at some point. All right. Well, on that note, Laura, cheers.
Cheers.
Salud, chin chin.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for episode 3, season 2.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see you for the next few episodes. So you know what's coming up. We're going to be talking about the fallas in Valencia. Paella, the one and only amazing meal in Spain, particularly in the coast. And we're going to be visiting the Alhambra in Granada. Thank you.
The Made in Spain podcast is an Everything's Rosy production with executive producers and host Nalini Sharma and Laura Senior, with special thanks to production assistant Ayrton Nath.